Well, Coach, I think it's time for us to get started.
Let's do it.
Jody Wright, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, doing great. Appreciate y'all having me on. Had a busy
Look,
few days recruiting, but glad to talk some recruiting.
man, we're going to talk a little bit of recruiting. Facebook and Instagram, we're live. We're stream living or live streaming everywhere, and so we'll be out live on Facebook, Coach, and maybe even going to Instagram. I don't know, but then it'll get recorded and put all over the place. But um, man, it is good to see you, guys. If you don't know Coach Wright and Jody, this is Coach Jody Wright, head football coach at Murry State University in Kentucky. I'm Coach Robert Cagle. I serve as the Vice President of National Scouting Report. Jody and I go back a long way. And but before I get into that, Jody. I'm gonna rip my monkey turn red. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell the world about Jody Wright real quick. Okay, all right. So you just sit there and grin and I don't know, think about your pretty wife and your babies and all that kind of stuff for a few minutes while I just talk about it. But because a lot of people may not know, guys, if you remember the run of national championships at Alabama between like about 10 and I don't know, 18 or something like that. And we'll go back through that. This guy right here, Facebook land, this guy right here out there he was one of the key fellas in that whole deal. And he was one of those guys behind the scene as a grad assistant, then as football ops guy, then as an analyst. But he was always he's considered one of the top talent evaluators in the country. He really is. And so let me give y'all a background on this guy, okay? So he started his career in 2002 and 2004 at Jacksonville State. Then he went to Mississippi State as a volunteer. And then at 2006, 2008, Jody was the graduate assistant there. And then, Jody, I think you and I met through Coach Felker in 2008 or 9. I don't remember the exact time, but it was right through there, okay? And then so in 2009, Coach Wright was the assistant athletic director, football ops guy. 2010, he goes with Coach Saban as a GA. Then in 2011 and 12, he's an offensive analyst. Goes with Bill Clark in 2013 over to Jacksonville State, where he is he was a coordinator, passing game coordinator, and a tight ends coach there. And then Bill takes the job at UAB, and there he goes over to UAB as the assistant head coach and recruiting coordinator, running backs coach. Then Coach Saban said, well, hold on just a minute. We may have taken a little dive in some recruiting. I got to bring him back to Alabama. So then he goes back to Alabama of 2015, 16, and 17 as a director of player personnel. 18 back as the assistant head coach for Coach Clark then on to the Browns in Cleveland, the New York Giants, and then landed with Shane Beamer at South Carolina in 2022. And then this past year was your first complete season, Jody, at Murry State. And I just gave these people the whole rundown of your entire resume in about, I don't know, 90 seconds. How are you, my friend?
Oh, doing great. Been fortunate enough to be around a lot of great people in the coaching profession. Coach Saban, Sylvester Croon, Shane Beamer, Bill Clark, a lot of great coaches, a lot of great players, a lot of great players y'all helped us get, and appreciate that. And but it's been a great run. A lot of good coaches I've worked with. Like I said, families you got to meet, players, and everything. And a lot's changed in recruiting since I first got it. I guess when I was trying to be recruited in high school to play at Jacksonville State, and then being able to be at all different levels, I think prepared me to be the head coach at Murry State. And like I said, it's always want to be a head football coach, and it was a great opportunity to come to Murry State, and some challenges, but we're building this program up, and we think we're going in the right direction, and hopefully going to finish it off with a good signing class here in February.
No doubt. And look, I'm gonna tell you right now, the people at Murry State got a jewel when they got you, and if they'll give you the time that you need, brother, you will turn that thing around. The culture, that's going to be the thing for you. You're going to be able to bring culture to it, and winning culture is a big deal, and that's it. But you talked about some guys. The first time I met Jody he was at Mississippi State, and Coach Rocky Felker actually recruited me when Rocky was at Alabama, and then took the head coach job in 1986
Yeah.
at Mississippi State, and then started recruiting me at Mississippi State, and I ended up at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And so Coach Felker and I stayed connected a little bit over the years, Jody. And so I called him one day and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. He said, well, come on by. I got somebody I want you to meet. Then all of a sudden I meet you, and here we are.
That's right.
But you mentioned some guys. Look, and people on here, Jody, we're gonna have to talk about this just a little bit.
Yeah.
Everybody can't be an OJ Howard or a Bradley Bozeman or a Matt Womack or, I mean, so many of those other guys that I've helped find plays that I worked with in high school and NSR's worked with, that you look at when they're sophomores in high school and you go, ooh, okay, that dude's special.
Yeah.
But those kids are rare. And but let's jump in. I mean, let's get past the how much I love you and all that stuff, because you know you're one of the white hat guys in coaching, and we think the world of you.
Well, thank you. I thank the Lord of y'all. Appreciate everything you've helped me out a lot over the years. Appreciate your friendship, your honesty, and everything, and especially some of the good players you sent us.
Well, they help win some championships, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the biggest things that just came down, and this happened, I think, right probably in August, if I'm not mistaken on my time, Jody. That was about the time the NCAA, maybe the first week in August or this last weekend in July, when they came down with all that litigation, that lawsuit deal, and they made all these changes, and it's now and it's changed not just football. And I realize today we're talking, we got a football flavor today, right? That's where we're living. But these changes have impacted every sport, not in a positive way. But I do have a question. How's this 105? And I'm gonna kind of lean back in my chair here and just kind of get comfortable, just so I can listen to you go. But the adoption of this 105 roster limitation scholarship rule, is this going to be something that affects every Division I program, or is it just going to be for only the opt-in guy? Talk to me about how that's going to impact everybody at this point in time.
Yeah, right now I would say, as coaches, we joke all the time. It's something changing every day, and every week it's a new email or something with a lawsuit. Somebody threatens to sue and changes something. So, I do think the NCAA is going to come up with hopefully some legislation or something and kind of get everybody where we know we're going. But I do think there will be a level of opt-in with revenue sharing. You can already see some schools doing that. And with that, with the opt-in revenue sharing, I believe all the schools that are going to do that, and I think it's going to probably come from the conferences, just like we've already had discussions, our roster is going to have to be 105 players, and I believe that'll be the same across the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Sun Belt, all of Division I football. It's going to be the SoCon conference, I would think. Everybody's going to be at their
just go ahead and go to the
roster limits. Okay. Where last year we were able to have over 115 players. I think Alabama and Georgia sometimes have 140 type of players, Clemson. And, so I'm sitting there like, man, that's 10 less spots minimum we're going to have. And, that hurts you. And I'm not for it. I wish we had 115 spots. And
sure. You wish you had as many as you could get out there.
Oh, we do.
And the thing is, let me ask this question. This is the misunderstanding, right? That so many people have. Just because a school opts in on the 105 for the revenue share, that does not mean that they're going to fund 105 scholarships. That just means that they could, if the conference agrees to, or they may not. They may stay limited at their 85. How does that? Is that how you interpret or see this playing out at this point in time?
Yes, like FCS, you get 63 full scholarships. Now, I think you could divide your 63 into 105 players, but
correct.
Some FCS schools only give full scholarships. We do partials a lot, and basically we're trying to get the most players we can for the 63 scholarship pot of money. So it helps to have good grades. It helps to have those sort of things, without a doubt. And any type of scholarship you can get, whether it be a leadership, good grades, any type of
ACT, SAT, merit-based money.
Yes, very, very important. But it will. I do think I wouldn't see anybody, and I don't think many people's going to be giving out 105 scholarships personally. I think they'll be staying at their 85, and just having 20 walk-ons, where before they may have had 40 to 50 walk-ons.
Yeah. So, and now even the walk-on situation is not truly a walk-on situation anymore. It's a roster spot fight.
Yes, and it'll be more and more competitive.
Let's talk about that. That was one of the questions I had down about that, that I think we're going to get to a little later, but let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit now. There was a time back where everybody, I'll never forget this. I had a kid just tell me one time, well, if they don't offer to Alabama, I'll just walk on. I went, no, you won't. I mean, that's not how that deal works. You just don't show up in August and ask for some pads. That's not how that's not how it goes down. You're going to actually go through the recruiting process, and they're going to tell you at some point in time, hey, we like you as a player. You were on our board, but we've decided to go somewhere else. We do have a roster spot for you possibly. Is that still how you see things kind of playing out now, even for the and for the let's go ahead and back up. If a conference opts in for 105 and they fund 105, they don't have any walk-ons.
Correct. And a conference could technically do that, or a school through NIL or whatever they wanted to do. They could technically, I guess, fund their 105 players. I do think there'll be some type of conference rule on that. I don't feel like anybody, but they easily could. Which the walk-on spot, like we're talking about, like even right now, we had 3 new walk-ons at our team today. And I had to tell them, like, look, we're you may not have a spot, by the summer or fall, because right now with some seniors and guys leaving the transfer portal and signing high school kids that won't be here till the summer, there's a few spots. So the window from January to, I guess you would say, your spring semester, you may have an opportunity, but I think it's harder and harder for the traditional, what people would always say, preferred walk-ons or this or that. When you had 130, 140 spots was a lot easier. I wish that was the case. Unfortunately, it's not right now. I think, I hate to say it, but it always comes back to a lot of times money. And, I think that's why, the rosters are doing what they do. You take care of the small number of players because of the revenue sharing and NIL, whatever. And it's hurting your, the days of having the Rudy or a Dabo Swinney walk-on story at Alabama or it's tough because it's probably not going to be like that anymore. And I hate that because I think that's something special about college football.
Yeah. But that's one of the things it's gonna be a ghost. It's gonna go away.
Yeah.
And I think, the one thing, and I'm gonna make fun of this a little bit, and it's easy to make a little fun of it, Jody, when you're not sitting in your chair and you're sitting in mine. But I used to tell people, they would tell me, "Oh, I got a PWO offer," and I said, "Well, congratulations. The coach just had enough guts to tell you they prefer you to pay the tuition instead of themselves. So congratulations." And we joke about that, but the truth is that there is something now. If a coach tells you, "Look, we've got these spots, where 105 is our max, and if we tell you we got a roster spot, then okay, you got an opportunity to be on that roster at that 105. You're not going to get any athletic money, but you may get GPA money, leadership money, ACT Bear money, and then all of a sudden you get a chance to be on that roster. Now you're going to have to bust your rear end to stay on that roster, just like everybody else does. But it's a whole different story, right?
Oh, it's a great opportunity. I mean, we had a young man that turned down. He had 4 or 5 full scholarship FCS offers that came to us basically as a preferred walk-on quarterback, and he threw for over 10,000 yards in his career and was first team Kentucky All-State and up for Mr. Football in the state, and but he got so much academic money to Murray because of his grades. He would basically said, "Hey, I'd rather come to Murray State and walk on than take these other FCS offers." And, and we were glad to give him a walk-on spot because we felt like he was a scholarship player. But it helped us out because we kind of got a free player because he had such great academics,
No doubt. And that's one thing I think let's talk about that since you brought it up, and we got so much to cover tonight. But folks, I hope you heard what Coach Wright just said. If you're listening, and it doesn't matter the sport, okay? It doesn't matter the sport. If you've got high academics, if you've got a good GPA, if you've got a great leadership resume, if you've got a good ACT, SAT score, there's money at a university that can be had for you as a player. And then all of a sudden, you become what we might refer to as a twofer. Okay? You refer as a twofer. I'm going to use Jordan as an example here, Jody, as our son. Jody and Bill and those guys offered our son, Jordan Cagle, at Jacksonville State and told him, we're going to give you all of it. And if you want all of it on the athletic side, we'll give it to you all on the athletic side. But because your ACT score, because your GPA, because your other stuff, if you would let us split this up, it sure would help us find another athlete. I remember that conversation as clear as day,
Yeah.
and that was back in 2013, whenever it was. I mean,
Yes.
so the point is Jody, how does that play out nowadays with so many people talking about test optional and you don't have to have an NCAA, don't have to have an ACT score because the NCAA doesn't require it. What are your personal thoughts on that as far as people needing to take the ACT, SAT, doing that kind of stuff?
I would take them as many times as you can because it's going to open up doors, especially on the FCS level. And even if you decide to use one of those 20 spots at a SEC or ACC school and you walked on, well, now you can play on that academic money, I believe. And, like for our situation, let's say you make good on one test, you can just submit the test you made good on and your grade. So it does no damage. I think the more the test scores you do, your GPA's got to go with your transcripts, but the more I'd take the ACT and the SAT, as many times as you can and try to get as many scores because I think it's going to open up more doors for you. And I tell guys all the time, like, there's nothing wrong with, now in today's world, you feel like you think you're an SEC or ACC player. Well, you may have to go down and play. Look at Missouri had a guy that transferred that was a Division II running backs playing in the NFL now. And, South Carolina, we had a safety that was playing, Division II, and there's, at right now, some of our best players last year, and we signed a Division II lineman, and you can go there and put really good tape out there and get your education paid for and, possibly play up. And me personally, I'm in the market for more guys that possibly came from a smaller school and maybe we're all conference and decided to get in the portal because, hey, I can prove I can play at a higher level. Or, we love guys in high school that have all those academic tags because it shows, number one, they can accomplish something. They're bright young people and they either work hard, they've got some redeeming qualities that made them get those grades. And, and it helps to stack all that because, like I said, we're trying to find the most football players we can for that pot of 63 scholarship money. And the more guys we can that they get, 25 or 30% of it paid by academics, that's 30% we can put toward another scholarship. So
Absolutely. So, and let me just, in case our listeners and watchers, folks are watching, maybe not understand what we're talking about here, guys. Every Division II has a number of scholarships, full ride scholarships that they can actually offer, and the FCS Division One, their number is 63, and then the old number was 85 total full rides, and it was a head count. If you got a scholarship of any kind, it head counted, and you were on the roster of 85. It didn't matter if it was academic or not. You got counted toward the 85. And so there was a limitation of 105 at the time, which was walk-ons, but then they had even more kids that were held to walk-ons that were not even on the roster by that point. We're talking about scholarships and we're talking about the limitations on that. And that's what Coach Wright's talking about here is at the FCS, Division I FCS level, there's 63. They can split that 63 as many times as they need to get to their 85 or their 105, I guess now, since you guys are going to go that route. But the point he's making is that all the other money can be added and stacked. And that's the piece of it that's there. You said something that just a second ago that really tweaked me, and I think we've got it on one of our talking points. So I want to go ahead and get to it. With all the transfer portal stuff, and how does the recruiting landscape today, how is it impacting the high school athlete? Because that's who's ultimately paying the price today is the high school athlete. So let's talk a little bit about how the portal and how this whole deal, this trickle down has really impacted the high school player.
Yeah. I met in my office probably with 20 or 30 high school parents in the last week or two. And I've told them all, like, the portal has killed high school recruiting. Well, not killed it, but it's hurt it significantly. And, all they can control is the ball they play. But so many coaches are, they feel like maybe hey, I'm on year 3 and we're getting some pressure and, yeah, you're a great player. And 4 years ago, you've been no-brainer signing for us, but man, we can get this portal guy and, it's just a little less risky. He's played more college football and you have it and they're going to take that. And, it is and with so many players getting extra years of eligibility and COVID and things like that, you've got guys playing college football 6, 7 years and COVID rosters. And it's just, I mean, it is made roster management just crazy right now. And used to, you didn't have as many, 10 years ago, you played one play, you lost your red shirt. Now guys can play 4 plays in a bowl game and this and extra red shirt. So, and now that rosters are being cut down, it's even harder for high school recruiting. So, it's that more important to get your name out there, the exposure, and use every connection you got with guys like you and things, because it is it's tough. And I hate it because I love high school recruiting, and I'm against a lot of the things that's got us in this climate we're in right now, and would love to change it. And but I do think I know the American Football Coach Association voted unanimously. There's probably people putting both hands up in the air to vote when they're going to do a 10-day portal window. Hopefully will pass, which will, in my opinion, this next cycle will make high school recruiting more like, won't be exactly, but it'll be a lot more friendlier back to the high school days. The roster cuts are going to hurt, but at least it's getting some more. I think that high school recruiting will become a lot more prevalent, as it should.
Okay, and I probably agree with that premise as well. The one thing that really bothers me in all that is the timing of the portal and the kids that were in there making their transfer before they ever went to. I mean, before the season was over all with. Before, I mean, they were in. They don't go play in their bowl game. They don't do whatever, and I mean, and that's terrible. That's terrible for the sport. But anyway, you're not going to be able to change it individually, but a group of you as coaches, when at the meetings, y'all can change it. It just takes time. That's the way that works.
And it's tough because you take December. I think the high school signing window, you got a 48-hour window there, December the 4th through the 6th. Well, if you sign then I have to sit there and wait to December 28th. Every single player on my roster could have got in the portal. And I have no idea how many high school kids I can sign because I have no idea who's going in the portal. And it's like, how do it's like, well, you got a high school players. Well, yeah, we should sign this many, but I can't tell you how many players tell you I'm 100% good, I'm not going to the portal. And then they, love to talk to people that nothing against them, but maybe never played football, never coached in football, never been part of a recruiting process, but they became geniuses overnight. And hey, you didn't play a lot here, but get in the portal. You're going to get something bigger and better. And, I hate to say it, a lot of guys have found out the hard way that, it's a tough climate out there in the portal. And a lot of them, the statistics will show they had to play down and things like that. So
here's what we were told by one of the statistic gatherers, Jody, is that about 45% of the athletes that get in the portal, they die in the portal.
Oh yeah.
They cut the tie with the team that they're at, and they think there's something better, and they get in that portal, and then they end up not getting anywhere.
Oh,
that's 45, and I don't know if that number is it's got to be fairly accurate because it runs in tune with a lot of the other numbers that those guys that we get those stats from come from that are tied into the NCAA. And think about this. This is something you said earlier that's a real big, and this is what every high school kid needs to hear. Okay, I'm actually kind of paraphrasing a whole lot of philosophy we've been chit chatting here about, right?
Yeah,
guys. Jody Wright just told you a second ago in a paraphrase that why wouldn't he take a kid that's 21 or 22 years old that's got a year or two of eligibility left, that's already played college ball and made a great video, great tape, was all conference at a level. Why wouldn't he take that guy over an 18-year-old that's trying to figure out what he wants to major in and if he's willing to leave his girlfriend at home? I mean, at the end of right? I mean, that's the philosophy now. And why take a boy when you can take a grown man? I mean, that philosophy is not one I agree with, but I'm saying that that's where we are. And that every high school athlete, which let's talk about this. Now, this is a pet peeve. Okay, so Jody, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a pet peeve. This is a pet peeve of mine that all these guys, all these high school kids, they get these I don't know, they get these uncommittable offers, and all of a sudden they put on Twitter and Instagram, right, I'm so blessed I got this offer from Penn State, and what, he's a high school kid, he's a sophomore in high school. Holy smoke, Jody, let's talk real, everybody, about how truly those offers are not true committable offers, and that for the most part, and that how that so much changes in 1 year, much less two. How in the world can anybody? Why are we even going to why do we even put that stuff out there for everybody? Is it just an ego thing for these kids and all that kind of stuff? Because it's bad information.
Yeah, and and it's an ego thing, and even when I was in Alabama to South Carolina to here, well, we're not going to visit unless we're offered. Well, offered what? Like you're not, we've never seen you, things, and it's like my ego. I got to have an offer to visit, and then a guy. I said, you haven't played any more games, and there's schools that I know watch who we offer. And if a kid posts an offer for Murry State, there's these 4 or 5 schools that they're going to be within the next 2 or 3 hours. They're going to have a phone call and be offered to. And I'm like, there's no way the coaches have even watched their tape, whatever. And it's just like trying to stay in the game. And, and I say it's almost like, the run by and say, hey, I smiled at that girl, or I tell you, or whatever. But, it's comical sometimes. But, I'd say unless the head coach says, hey, and I don't know how a head coach could tell you where his roster is currently. Like, I mean, you can't. All you can do is say, hey, this guy's a no-brainer player, and I'll shake your hand when I offered you as the head coach and said, I want you to commit now. And I understand, high school coaches have pressure because kids trying to transfer on them. And, well, you didn't get my son this offer, and parents, why can't my son get offered? And it's, my brother's a high school coach, and I hate it, some of the stuff, because it trickles down,
It
and
does.
but it's I'd say what's out there on Twitter and the reality. I mean, we had players on our team that they went the transfer portal that didn't play much for us, and they go in the transfer portal, and they post an offer from another FCS school, and then one even posted one from an ACC school. I'm like, why would you not commit? Why would you not go to Virginia Tech if they offered you? And I'm sitting there going the whole time, there's no way Virginia Tech offered you a scholarship. It's none of my business anymore. He's left my team, but now he's going to a lower level Division II team. So I'm like, why? And you just know it's all false.
It's all smoke and mirrors, man. And that's the thing. It's all, and everybody wants to get caught up in what their teammate has done and what their buddy has done. And they don't realize it's all, for the most part, smoke and mirrors. And let me tell y'all, this is the joke, Jody, right?
Yeah.
So we have guys that work for us at NSR, and guys and high school coaches too. Oh, this kid's definitely Division I. He's D1. He's D1. And I go, you know how you want me to tell you how I'll tell you when I know when a kid's a D1 player. He said, when? I said, on National Signing Day. Of course, we don't have a national sign necessarily, NIL, a national letter of intent, NLI anymore. I said, but when he signs and he plays his first ball game, he's a Division I athlete. Till that time period, he ain't nothing but an athlete, wherever level he ends up. And is that not 100% true?
1,000% true. And coaches, I trust some of my coaches to off guys scholarships. And I said, hey, if they're good enough, but we're not taking anybody. I've watched them, I've proved them, and can check off on their character and those sort of things. And we have a need for them. So it's on you, to management, and there's a little bit of, but that's 100% true. Because I mean, we signed a young man today that he had an Auburn offer and Texas Tech offer and a lot of offers when he was in 9th and 10th grade. And he did nothing, and he did nothing but play really good. But they took, portal players, this or that, and I think he tried to play the long game, and and a lot of guys, not to say they were committable when he was in 9th or 10th grade, but people offer and do whatever. But we're happy to have him. But like, I don't think that Auburn offer is probably committable anymore or something.
No, and the thing is, and unfortunately, that's the side of a lot of this that people just don't realize, is there's so much behind the scenes that they get caught up in. We kind of talked about the walk-on stuff and even how that affects scout teams. But let me ask this question though: what does a high school kid need to do, in your opinion? What does a high school kid need to do now to really stand out as a player? And I'm gonna preface this for the crowd that's watching. Moms and dads, every kid that's 6'2", 260 pounds that made all state as a center or as a guard, don't come to me and tell me he can play Division I because he's all state and he's. But I realize he's a little shorter than everybody. I realize he's a little smaller, but he's the exception. There are no exceptions hardly anymore, guys. There are none. And I'm gonna preface my next comment with Coach. So, what does a high school kid, other than fit the metrics box, height, wingspan, speed for the position, physicality, the academic piece, other than that, because we don't need to get out of that box anymore, Jody. There's too many kids that fit in the box at the portal now to go to a high school kid that's undersized and underspeed and think that's going to work. I had a guy tell me today his kid got a Georgia State offer. The kid's 5'9", running back, 165 pounds, and runs a 4.75. I know because I timed him.
Yeah.
So let me ask you that: what does a high school kid need to do today to really stand out and get himself ahead of what could be a transfer portal athlete?
Yeah, I think it goes back. You said it correctly. The measurables are going to stand out first, and I think back to OJ Howard and Bozeman and some of the guys y'all had representing, that end up playing Alabama, and they're playing on Sundays for a reason. They have Sunday measurables, but that definitely helps with a guy that's playing offensive line that's over 6'4", probably, if you're trying to play SEC, and even our conference. I think the average lineman 6'4", 6'5", and things like that. And and I always say, if you don't meet the measurables, you have to be so elite in the other areas. So let's say you're not the biggest receiver, you have to have such elite speed. And I always say, if you're not big, you have to play really big. And not to say you can't. We had Quincy Williams, who was here today, who's an all-pro linebacker for the New York Jets that played at Murry State. He came to Murry State as a strong safety, and he wasn't really recruited out of the state of Alabama because he's a little bit undersized and probably still is by NFL measures, but he had elite speed, elite burst, and he even had long arms and hands, but not elite height. I said, I always compare it to basketball. I said, Steph Curry's not big, but he plays big. But guess what? Duke didn't want him coming out of high school. Kansas, he had to go to Davidson and play. John Morant, one of the best basketball players in the NBA from Murray State. I think he had a South Carolina State offer. Clemson and South Carolina didn't offer him, and he was in their state. And one scout saw him, and he's just not big, but he jumps. His jumping ability is elite. His shooting ability is elite. It's just he's jumping as high as guys and getting up there on the rim like a guy that's 6'9". But he came to Murray State and proved, hey, I can still jump. No different than all guys. And I look at quarterbacks. I was around the NFL. Baker Mayfield was a walk-on. Short, and Josh Allen playing tonight for the Buffalo Bills. He wasn't highly recruited. So you got to always say, if you're not elite measurables, you have to be elite. Your skill set, you have to just be, and it's
something's got to jump off the screen at somebody.
Yeah, no different than everybody wants major league scouts want a big pitcher, and you find a little pitcher, but man, he's throwing 96, 97. He's not big, but he does, and it's got to be, something like that, and probably the hardest thing is offensive line. Like, you don't see many offensive linemen that are 5'10", 5'11", maybe a center every now and then. But,
well, I'm reminded of about the time you came in at Alabama. You guys had an undersized center. Was it Ryan Kelly? Is that who it was?
Well, Ryan Kelly was a little bit undersized. But, he starts coach. He actually had pretty good size. It was William Vlahos.
Okay.
From Mountain Brook. He was under, he wasn't your ideal height and all that, but the intangibles were elite off the chart.
He was like 6'1", maybe. Really, he was probably
6 foot.
But he was a war daddy, though. I mean,
Yeah.
he was, and for people that don't know in the football world, we're talking about dudes and war daddies and
Yeah.
dogs. Listen, this cat was an inside lineman war daddy. He would wear
Yeah.
you out. He wasn't done with you until he
And,
buried you.
yeah, in Alabama, he was probably signed to help get a couple other players at his high school, to be honest.
It
You know,
ended up being a great player, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think what the crowd, what our listeners and people are watching need to hear is that there's got to be the measurables for a high school kid today to play Division One. You got to have the measurables. Then not only are you going to have the measurables, you're going to have to do something that really makes you stand out above and beyond everybody else. And if they don't have that, it's not something you can't be average in something and expect to go play Division One anymore. Not out of high school.
And it's hard, and I tell guys all the time, if you're not big, you better play big, and if you're big, you better play big, if you're fast, you better think fast where you can play fast, and different things. But it's definitely more competitive
than it was. And that's the crazy part of this. Couple more questions, and then we'll kind of slide out. And I know you've had kids on campus all weekend, and for those that Jody brought in, I think you had 27 mid-years you got coming in, and so they're trying to get in school, and you got visits coming up. So I know this is a busy time for you. I got one more thing I do want. Let's talk a little bit about this crazy lawsuit that the quarterback from Vanderbilt pulled out, and the JUCO stuff. How do we see? And I mean, right now the NCAA, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, they've basically said, look, here's where we are on this. Everybody that's a JUCO guy for 2025, and anybody that was a non-NCAA institution, so NAI school, they get an extra year of eligibility at this point in time, and that's kind of been a blanket. Other than that, it's going to come down to an individual uh, uh, situation where they have to get evaluated. The NCAA has to consider it and determine that. Talk to me in terms of what you know about that as a coach and how that may impact some things too.
That's another one. I've heard different versions. I know the NCAA, I believe, sent something to our compliance office, and I personally think, and hearing some people talk, I think that probably have a good feel what's going on with it. It's going to this year. It will, the Vanderbilt quarterback Diego, he'll be able to play this year, and probably any other player in that realm that was, in junior college and whatever to get their fifth year, I guess, whatever. But I think the NCAA is going to have to eventually put in some language, and I've seen all the stuff on the internet about go play JUCO 4 years and then go play then go play in the NCAA for 4 years. So you get 8 total years and a red shirt 9. You can play 9 years. That's not going to happen.
No,
and they're going to get that fixed. I think it's just going to take a little time, but that's not realistic. I think this is going to be got us with a little legal stuff, and instead of fighting it and going crazy, you got your 1 year, a little bit like COVID, and now let's get back to reality with some things and kind of,
okay.
And it's good for the game. I mean, to me, you've had your 4 or 5 years to play college football. High school kids deserve a chance. Just like with the COVID rosters and stuff, I'm like, hey, you've had your 4 or 5 years to play. Good. If you've had a horrible medical accident or whatever, missed years, yes, you should get your year back or a hardship waiver. I'm all for that. But I'm like, just because you want to hang out wherever, get 4 master's degrees, like, no, let's get a
Cash in on a little more NIL money because
yes. I mean, and go give a high school kid a chance at his dreams to go play college football or college athletics, and let him get experience some of that.
Gotcha. And I totally
like
agree.
You can't play little league baseball forever. Eventually, you have to move up to 13 and 14 or high school ball.
Absolutely, whatever the next level is, you got to get on at some point in time, right?
Yeah. So
and that's kind of crazy the way that everybody's kind of gotten to that mentality. So tell me a little bit. Hey man, how's your team? How you gonna look this next year, Joe? Let's just talk
Yeah.
about your team for a minute. We hadn't even talked about your team, man. I know you had a
Um,
bumpy year this year because you play in the most difficult conference and play the most. Y'all,
uh,
I'm gonna let Jody tell you. He's probably their league that he plays in probably got more NFL. Go ahead, you go ahead. I'm just
yeah,
gonna,
it's a
I'm gonna let you steal it.
it was a fun first year as head coach. We got to play two SEC teams, Missouri, Kentucky, and I think we played seven teams that were ranked in the top 15 at one time this year, and we got to play the national champion in North Dakota State, and South Dakota State and South Dakota, who they were all in the Final Four. Missouri State, who is a top ranked team, and Illinois State, who went the second round of the playoffs as well. But it's a great league. There's a lot of great football in FCS. I would say the one thing, year two, getting hired, in mid-January, we kind of missed the December signing period last year and February. And we feel like, if we'd have been here more time before February, we'd have got to sign more high school players. And we had to go in the portal world a lot in spring. And, one thing I've realized, the spring portal, a lot of guys that were in it in December, that maybe didn't have nowhere to go, and there's probably a reason they didn't have anywhere to go sometimes. And we had to fill a roster, but we all make mistakes sometimes in recruiting, and I think we put a big more emphasis this year in trying to sign more high school kids. The hard part, like I said, the first early window in high school, because your whole roster could leave you December the 27th or 28th. And, so now we've kind of got a little better picture, and a little more strong push for high school kids in the second window. I don't know how every program is. I want to keep getting back to more and more high school kids, players, in my opinion, just because I think, there is, I look at the teams in FCS football, the Dakota schools, and they've kind of built theirs like that.
It's their
And
model. That's actually their model.
it is, and they've done a good job. And I think it has made, a lot of guys, if they're second or third string, whether it's the SEC or wherever, they want to go get in the portal because they're not playing as a freshman or this or that. And I think it's hurt because kids haven't really had to fight for anything or establish their way. And I think hopefully there can be some stuff cleaned up with that. And I think the more and more kids that probably didn't get what they want in the portal, yes, it's good for some, to move up and have opportunities, whether it's financial opportunities or whatever. That's great. But like I said, I would say the 90% of people, the grass is not greener, and it's some hard realities they're facing. And I think I saw a basketball coach or something talking about delusional players, and sometimes, that's, I know we coaches, sometimes we feel like, players, you got to know kind of what your level. And at the end of the day, you have to go do it in games, whether high school games or college games. And I tell guys all the time, coaching in the NFL, you can go run a good combine, but guys really want to see you do it on the field, because ultimately that's how they do their job, is how you produce on that field, whether it be on Friday night, Saturday night, or Sunday.
That's exactly right. And I'm gonna tell you something along those lines too, Coach. And look, right now in the football world too. I know we hadn't really talked about this, but before we run out of time, right now it seems like there's a lot of guys trying to run a bunch of 7-on-7 stuff now in high school. And I think this is a personal opinion. I want yours on this. Um, I'm all for some 7-on-7 if we're talking about working on timing with routes and the quarterback being able to them and their receivers getting their timing down together and doing that kind of stuff. But coach, have you ever really done any serious evaluation of an athlete on 7-on-7 film?
Well, you'd like to see how they could separate, maybe close on a ball. Yes, some of that, but I know tackling's big on my evaluation and blocking, and being able to separate and break a tackle if you catch a ball. A lot of things I said, unfortunately, I tell guys all the time, when we get judged and keep our jobs and how you get evaluated to go play on the next level, we have to play with pads on and shoulder pads and helmets, and they can tackle you, and the quarterback gets pressured and different things. So, definitely more evaluation that in pads. I do think there is value in some of it, but the valuation, in pads is definitely the best evaluation that I like to use.
No doubt. I always joke about it because anybody can catch a ball over the middle when it's a little high, when you ain't got to worry about some dude rupturing your kidney. You know, but when you got to
No
worry
doubt.
about some dude rupturing your kidneys, a 220 outside linebacker that's closing down 220, 6'3", and closing that on you, he's gonna put the helmet right there into your kidneys, and
Yeah,
you're gonna draw up just a little bit right before he hits you. So at the
yeah,
end of the day, that's a whole different animal than it is just running across there, somebody maybe touching you. I mean,
no doubt.
so we joke about that a little bit because we got a lot of people now that are trying to really press that 7-on-7. Look, there's some benefit to it athletically. There's some benefit to it that we can see some skilled players do some things. But when it comes down to it, guys, you got to be able to run. You got to be able to catch. You got to be able to tackle. You got to be able to break loose from a tackle. You got to show some power, some explosion. The only way to do that is with a bunch of pads on.
No doubt.
Coach,
No doubt.
listen, one more thing. How's APR and graduation rates? How's that affect? Is it still affecting funding for scholarships for schools and conferences? Is that something that's still important? Because it was at one time. And what I mean by that is for those that are listening and watching, there's a set of guidelines that every university, every conference that the NCAA puts on them that a certain percentage of their athletes have to graduate, and in a certain time period. And so, talk to us a little bit about that, and we'll kind of bring us to a close today.
Yeah, I'd say it is. It's probably, I think it is going to be adjusted. You hadn't seen as many teams get hit with. I think they're still trying to figure all that out because with the transfer portal. So it's like, how can you punish a program where there's rules in place really that every single player can leave? And then, yes, you want them all to leave eligible. But we also, yes, I try to find guys a place to play and do everything I can to help them, especially if they've been a model citizen in our program. And hey, coach, I want to go down and play. Now, there's some guys that just leave and you're telling them to go to class, you're telling them to do all this, and they just, leave. And it's like, it's tough probably to hold those guys accountable and let's say they're just delusional. They have offers from schools, but they think they're too good to go to those schools. If they don't go to another school, you lose APR points, so I think it's died down a little bit. I think they're going to revamp it. I think more of it probably needs to be more based on the players you have in your program lining up to stay eligible. Maybe I'm probably a little bit. I've heard so much of about it in the last year. It's kind of all over the place. I know I hadn't seen many schools getting hit with it lately, and I think it's because they're trying to figure out how to punish it or what the new rules and laws are with the craziness we're kind of in right now with portal and everything.
No doubt. Well, look, Coach, I really appreciate it. We're going to bring it to a close, but Coach Jody Wright, man, we love you. We appreciate what you do for all the kids. I realize that man, I know you wish you could help every kid out there that's a great kid, because that's who you are as a person, and we've known that for a long time. But I want to encourage people too, that maybe tonight, maybe you're a great athlete, maybe you hadn't had a chance to check out Murry State and figure out what they're all about. Let me tell you what they're all about. They're all about creating young men that can play the game and go on to play past college, but they're also about bringing in guys in to get them their education and get their degree as well. Are you going to be treated well by Coach Wright? Based on everything I know about him for the last 15 years, he's going to treat you the way he wants to be treated, like the golden rule. So I can't ever say anything bad about that. But Jody, we're a huge fan of Coach Jody Wright. We always have been. You're a longtime friend. You always pick up the phone. You always have time to talk to us about different athletes. But man, we wish you the best as you start trying to get ready for next year and figuring out what you're all about and for your team. But thank you so much for taking a few minutes tonight to just spend some time with us and educate really maybe hundreds of thousands of people about some things that they need clarity on, because the reality of the process is it ain't what it was 5 years ago. It's not what it was 10 years ago. And if you're a high school athlete, you better get you some help, and you better find somebody that you can trust that will help you. And it's not going to be little Jimmy down the street because his daddy played for whatever school back in the day. That's not going to be the person that can help you. They're not connected. Your high school coaches, they're good people. They're awesome people. but they're very limited sometimes on really what kind of resources they can have to get you in front of the right places. And I want to tell you all this real quick, and Coach Wright said this. Guys, if you're going to get an offer from a school, there's going to be 4 or 5 coaches on that staff. They're going to have to agree to offer you before you get a committable offer. And the head coach is going to have to sign off on it when it's all said and done. That ain't changed.
No. Robert, appreciate y'all, man. Y'all do an amazing job, and thank you for all the help over the years. And keep sending us guys. And wish I had a roster of 200 where I could take them all.
Man, me too. Well, Jody, take care, buddy. Give your wife a big hug.
Man.
Give him kids a hug, man. And we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thank y'all so much. Appreciate everything y'all do, and go Racers. Thank you.
Take care, buddy. See you soon.